right field. She is gone. In a year that has been so improbable, the impossible has happened. This one by Mattingly. Oh, hang on to the roof. Goodbye, home run. Mattingly. Tuck lights one. Deep left field. Down the line. That ball is out of here. Out of here. He's gone. And the legend
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Tablesetters covering all things Major League Baseball. As always, I'm Steve, joined by my tag partner, Devin. What's going on, man?
What's up? What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in. Steve, I'm hoping you had a good Easter over the weekend, a good trip to North Carolina. We've got a lot of baseball now kind of that we can actually dig into and discuss. Last time we were on here, it was just beginning, really. Now we can actually really kind of get into it, really bite into it now that we have some baseball that's gone by. And I'm excited to talk about it. There's lots to talk about.
Yeah, as the increased sample size, we're getting into the numbers and what they mean. And of course, you mentioned teams, but the last time we recorded, there was a handful of games. Most of the teams around Major League Baseball have 11 to 12 games in play already. Some have 13. And we're getting an idea of some of these teams and who they look like and what they'll be in the future. We all know baseball's a marathon. It's a war of attrition, but we're starting to see trends build. And that's interesting to watch as we read our favorite pundits and follow our favorite follows on X. There's been some idea about where this is going. And I'm curious some of the narratives that grow, and maybe they're a little bit contagious, where a team that feels like a winning team, does that carry over into the meaningful months as we get warmer around the Northeast?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what's going on right now, us included, is like overreaction theater, right? And we get that, but we still have to react to it in my mind. And it's a mix right now. There's lots of stats to dig into and some really, really good ones that kind of give you a hint as to what might stick around and what might just be here visiting. And that's not going to stay true for as long as some people might want it to. And it's a mix of that and also just kind of a feel. There are some teams right now that you watch and you feel good about them. And then there's others where you just kind of get a bad vibe. And it's early. Those things can change. We say all the time, right? Winning is the best deodorant. So that vibe kind of thing can change in a week's time, sometimes less. But we're gonna look at some of the bigger stories here. It's tough to look at all 30 teams in an episode, but some of the bigger picture stuff, division leaders, division seller, right? What we might think is just gonna be a short period of time and what might be a sign of things to come. So we're going to get into all that stuff.
So if you want to support our show, you can follow us on X and on Instagram at Tablesetters Pod for all future episodes and some clips. Devin's posting some conversation and polls throughout the season on the X machine. You guys can also check us out on YouTube at Tablesetters Baseball. Like and subscribe, leave a review on Apple, Spotify, wherever you're consuming us. Join the community and help support the show as we go further. So we're going to be covering all the things Devin mentioned before. We're going to hop into our opening say and jump into some of the biggest news around baseball. All right, Devin. So opening say here, it's unfortunate that we have to talk about injuries, but we do know that is a part of the game just as much as the play on the field. And I'll let you lead the way here. We saw some injuries happen to 3 arms around the league, and we can definitely get into more, but I guess the conversation goes towards which of these injuries we feel are the biggest deal to their club and to the trajectory for the rest of 2026.
Yeah, so these all kind of came down. The news came down on Tuesday, and 2 of them we had a warning ahead of time that something was going on, and they're trying to figure out how bad it was. And then the other one kind of came out of left field, to be honest. And we're the 3 guys we're talking about are Cade Horton, Cody Ponce, and Hunter Brown. So Cade Horton, we got kind of the report at first that just said they got the MRI back, and all we know right now is it's bad. And once you hear that, you're like, all right, UCL, Tommy John, or something of the sort, right? Internal brace. I don't know if we've gotten that yet, whether it's going to be a full Tommy John or the internal brace procedure for Cade Horton. Cody Ponce, we know, obviously got hurt a little while ago, a very unfortunate injury, trying to go field the ball towards first base, pulls up lame. Wasn't a hamstring, though. Luckily, wasn't an Achilles, I guess, luckily. Turns out to be an ACL. At first glance, they weren't sure if this is a surgery type of situation. It turns out it is. more than likely out for the rest of the year. Shame, obviously, making his way back to Major League Baseball and looked ready to go, honestly, from what the little bit that we did see of him. And then Hunter Brown, this is the one I'm saying kind of came out of left field. He's looked great. Suddenly we get the report shoulder is bothering him. He's going to go on the IL. Turns out to be a grade 2 strain, which is obviously the hope is it's a minor strain, 15-day IL. We'll be careful with him. He'll be back, next month. This is a little bit, you can't figure out necessarily when he's going to be back. And I think they're going to play it extremely safe with him. Grade 2, nothing to mess with the right shoulder, right? His throwing arm. You have to be really, really careful here. It's not going to be a rush him back situation by any means. So like the reports have not been that he's out for the year, but as a longtime baseball fan, this is something I see and I'm like, I could see this having a lot of starts and stops, and it ends up being like we don't see him again until 2027. They're unfortunate, man. Those are 3 very, very big injuries. And I guess that brings us into the conversation, like you said, like which one is the biggest deal? Like can any of these 3 teams that are affected by these injuries get past it and still succeed? Or are any of these just an absolute punch in the stomach for any of these teams where they're not going to be able to get back up?
I think it's so early to tell about where these teams' trajectories are, but all of them are a big deal in their own right. The Hunter Brown thing is interesting because when you look at early projections, even for fantasy baseball, one of the tallies in the column of drafting Hunter Brown with some of your higher draft picks is that he's been healthy. We haven't really seen this from him, and we know the arms are temperamental. And with the Cade Horton thing, you mentioned it's a forearm strain that led into this surgery, and our alarms go off when we hear things like this. And that's why we're a little bit pessimistic on the shoulder strain. It is a massive early blow for Houston. We talk about him being the staff ace. Last year, he finished 3rd in Cy Young vote, and we know how good he can be. The thing is, they built depth after last year's injury-ravaged rotation. It does put some strain on that plan in 2026. They have to figure out a way to navigate these murky waters. For me, the biggest deal going away is Cade Horton. I was very high on Cade Horton going into this year, and I don't even think this conversation is particularly close. I think it's also because the fact that we know Cade Horton's out for the year. He is a frontline arm. He came off last year, 2.67 ERA. He was in the Rookie of the Year conversation. I believe he finished runner-up. And this rotation is already compromised. Matthew Boyd out, Justin Steele not ready. This is a piece that, again, they have to build out some conversation, and maybe they did enough with Edward Cabrera. That might be what they will look at as like, okay, we got Edward Cabrera here, and he's going to be our guy to lead us into the charge, and we can still win this division, which I still very much believe it's possible. So 2 things can be true. This is the biggest deal for them, but that doesn't put them out of the conversation for winning that Central Division and even competing for a World Series this year. I'm that confident in what the offense has brought to the table. I just think the pressure now shifts, obviously, to Shota and Edward Cabrera. And I think with Cade Horton, the next step, everyone was expecting, you and I had this conversation in the Central preview, that who was the ace of this staff? And Cade Horton popped to the surface, and you look at what he did last year. I mentioned improvement. We all look at the trajectory from him, 11-4 last year. I mentioned the ERA being below 3, 2.67 to be exact. The whip was magnificent. The opponent averaged across 118 innings, 97 strikeouts. I think for Cade Horton, to me, it's like you want to see him build on last year. And then, of course, what it means for 2026. He's the biggest deal. The Cody Ponce thing, it's hard to quantify what he meant to the team, of course, because the Blue Jays got to the World Series last year without him there. But everyone was hoping that he would be the guy. And again, you got to remember the Blue Jays, and we will talk about him in our next segment. They're dealing with a lot of injuries. Talk about the injuries to Bieber, Jose Barrios, Trey Savage. Their staff is stretched thin early this year, and they got embarrassed by the Dodgers as well in that series. That was the rematch. It was almost an embarrassment ritual with Miguel Rojas on the mound and wearing the jersey. It just felt like the Blue Jays were down and out, and the Cody Ponce thing, getting the news that he's potentially out for the year. They're labeling it significant time, right knee injury, ACL sprain, possible tear, putting the year. It's that he's out for the year. I mean, even if he comes back,
it's surgery.
What are you really going to get from him? Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned, like, we were all looking forward to him. He was a guy that rebuilt his career overseas, signed a 3-year, $30 million deal. Clearly the Blue Jays pounced on him, no pun intended, immediately in the offseason. They recognize as a guy who could be not a bargain for what we're paying for. And now we're going to lean. They're going to lean on some depth. And if you're looking at their roster resource, Lazaro, Estrada, there's guys in there. Like, again, you want to look at the Blue Jays, and it is a long season. We watched what they did last year. There's a lot of gamers in there, but this is a huge story that compounds when you look at all the other guys involved, not just Cody Ponce. So biggest deal to Cade Horton. The Hunter Brown thing, I'm hopeful he comes back. It will be a bigger deal if he's out for the season, similar to Cade Horton.
Yeah, I think you make good points, and my answer is different, but I see your point of view completely. So here's my thing. While the other two are season ending, because like you said, the Ponce one season ending. Let's be honest. Like, sure, was there a 1% chance? Maybe, but it's season ending. The other two are season ending. I know Hunter Brown's might not be. I still say it's Hunter Brown, and this is the reason why. I think it's the biggest one. It's close between Houston and Chicago for sure. I still think the Cubs have a little more to fall back on than the Astros. You mentioned Shota Imanaga. He's found some of the more velocity has come back, and we'll see if he can be more of the guy he was 2 years ago when he first came over here than he was last year, especially the second half of last year. Obviously, Matthew Boyd's biceps injury looms large. If they lose him for a long period of time on top of Cade Horton, I mean, now all bets are off in Chicago. But he's saying this is going to be a short stint on the IL, and he's not going to be out long. We'll see. Justin Steele eventually will return, maybe in June. I'm not saying they're going to rely heavily on him. He's coming back from TJ. Right, you never know what you're going to get from a guy like that when he's coming back from Tommy John for the first few months. We saw Sandy Alcantara last year when he came back. And look what he looks like now with more time under his belt. He looks like the same guy we saw for years, whereas last year when he first came back from Tommy John, he did not look like that most of the time. So we don't know what we'll get from Steele, but I just do think they have a little more to fall back on. Obviously, they're not as intimidating as they once were. The Astros, this is the last thing they needed. The Astros offense has looked really good. Yordan Alvarez looks like the best hitter in baseball. And Jose Altuve looks like a top 10 hitter in baseball right now. Their offense is putting up runs. The problem is they are letting up an insane amount of runs. The Astros team ERA, at least when I looked this up earlier, I don't know if this is updated from the game today, but 6.03 ERA as a team. That's dead last in Major League Baseball. Like, dead last. The bullpen has been horrific. Brian Abreu in the back end filling in for Hader. I was confident he would do a great job. He's been getting crushed. So it's not just him either, but the pitching has been awful. And I feel like the Astros have always been able to hang their hat on pitching, even when the offense kind of goes through the doldrums. So to have that already going on and then lose your one sure thing in Hunter Brown, I don't know. I mean, I know they're treading water here. They're right around 500. Texas is just a game or a game and a half above them right now. Plenty of time to go. I just don't see how they can survive without Hunter Brown for a long period of time. And if it ends up being a season injury, then, I mean, there's just no shot. I know Tatsuya Amai looked much, much, much better in his second start, but to put that on a guy that's in his first year here, that's too much. So I don't know where they turn. Obviously, Fromber not there anymore. You got to remember that. So I think it's Houston just by a little bit. I will say the Chicago thing. Yeah, Edward Cabrera has looked amazing. He's looked like one of the best pitchers in baseball. But let's remember, last year was his all-time high in innings pitched in a season, and it was 137. Like, he hasn't even come close to 180, 200 innings pitched. Like, and without Horton there, now they need him to step up, and he's going to need to pitch more than 137 innings if this Cubs team is going to get to where they want to go. And the Blue Jays, just to put them in, kind of what you said, the cavalry, I know it's bad for them now. I mean, you mentioned the pitching injuries. It's also offense. Like, Barger hurt now, right? Santander already got hurt. Kirk 6 weeks or so. Like, they're absolutely ravaged with injuries. But on the pitching side, the cavalry is coming, right? Jose Barrios, Shane Bieber, Trey Savage, like, they are on their way back, and hopefully they can get back smoothly. And Kevin Kosman's pitching his freaking ass off right now, trying to keep their heads above water. And they did have an enormous victory today in that Dodgers series that you alluded to. It looked like they were going to get swept. Shohei Ohtani held them down for 6 innings. Big comeback win for Toronto. Maybe that gets them going, even though they're dealing with tons of injuries right now.
Yeah, and as far as the Astros go, if that wasn't baked into the numbers from today, they did lose 9-1 to the Rockies, and the bullpen gave up a significant amount of runs. And, not that this is going to be a Rockies conversation. I'm not saying the Rockies are a competitive team, but they and a couple of the other bottom-feeding teams last year look much inspired. And that doesn't carry you all the way through the summer. It's a long season, as we continue to mention. But there's some motivation and there's some buzz here that some of the younger players on the Rockies, there's been some good quotes coming out of that clubhouse about wanting to play for Denver. And I think, some of the conversations about the passion fans in Denver, and that goes a long way. Same thing in Pittsburgh, same thing in Miami. There's a lot to be said about the motivation and carrying that young core and building a brand and being proud to rock the crest and the logo on the hat. I think that's a big thing that a lot of these franchises have to make. But going back to the Astros, watching their pitching get beat up, it's interesting to watch that shape, because you think maybe it's like almost similar to like the New England Patriots in your brain. When you think about them, you think about certain teams. The Pittsburgh Steelers are a defensive first team. The Astros, as you mentioned, you think about the pitching, and no matter who's in that uniform, especially, we've been trained since 2017 that this team is going to put out a rotation that is formidable and you're scared of them. But that's not what we're seeing in the first 13 games in Houston. It's just not the same.
No, and it's just as good as the offense has been, man. Like, when you're putting up 9 runs sometimes and losing, like those are tough losses to swallow. And I feel like they've had some of those. Yordan's a whole different thing. We could spend a half hour on how Yordan Alvarez has looked, and we will talk about him later tonight. But yeah, I think you could go back and forth whether it's the Cubs or the Astros in the worst spot based on these injuries, but rough ones. And, hopefully all these star pitchers, I don't want this to snowball where every day we're getting more news about another star pitcher. I know Cole Ragans today gets hit by a comebacker, I believe on his pitching hand, stayed in initially and then starts getting absolutely smoked. I haven't seen if there's an update on that yet, whether this is a significant injury or if he just kind of lost feeling in the hand there and he'll be fine after 5 days. But like, you don't want to see these stars just go down. Like, there are some seasons like that where the season gets started, or sometimes before the season even starts, it's just like every day there's new news on a star pitcher going out. And I think this is enough. Let's stop here and let these guys stay healthy, and we can get the best of baseball.
The silver lining is throughout the many months of the baseball season, injuries will come. And I think for the Toronto Blue Jays team, which leads us into our meat of the order conversation, it eventually has to break the other way. There's a law of averages, if you believe in that type of universal type of pull for them. But let's get into the meat of the order and talk about these two teams in the ALCS and how they're doing.
We have the meat.
All right, so in our section here, we pinpointed two teams that are contenders, World Series contenders, American League pennant contenders that are struggling as we speak. We mentioned Toronto Blue Jays. We mentioned the Cody Ponce injury. Devin alluded to the other injuries, whether it be Addison Barger or Alejandro Kirk, and they are 4-8. 4-1 start they started. They're being driven as much by underperformance as attrition. 5-game losing streak, a sweep by the White Sox, a 14-2 loss to the Dodgers. You said they got the win today. So that believes that puts them at 5-8. Is that where we're tracking?
5-7.
Now?
It looked like they were going to go 4-8. They're at 5-7 now.
So either way, offensively, production has been thin beyond the core. George Springer, I looked at 6 for 40. Dalton Varsho's hitting a $188 with no home runs. Barger, as you mentioned before the injury, 1 hit in 10 games. They were playing around with playing him every day. And we mentioned being compounded by the injuries. We talked about Bieber. We talked about Barrios, Trey Savage. We put in Cody Ponce. There's a lot to be said about a team that's all going through it together. And I think that's sort of what the serendipity is between the Blue Jays and the Mariners. They're struggling in different ways, but it feels like they have two different trajectories about where they are. And a lot of the local media in Toronto, all the good graces, I'm not saying it's disappeared completely, but if you read any of the Toronto Sun and if you read any of the local media, TSN, et cetera, about the Blue Jays, there's negativity brewing around this start with the Jays. And it's interesting to watch that happen after so much goodwill that was built up in the October run. People are losing hope. Some people are losing hope, let's just say. I'm not saying all Toronto Blue Jays fans, but people are seeing the holes in this team and maybe the magical run wasn't as is. I don't know if I feel that way because they opened up with about a 6% World Series odds chance, and that's slipping further into, if you look at the odds, if you believe in anything like that. This team has a long season ahead of us. There's a lot of winners in that lineup. They were bonded by what was there last year. I wouldn't look at a 13-game stretch and make an assumption about who this team is. There's a lot of baseball left out there. And like you said before, the cavalry is coming on the pitching side.
Yeah, this is a tricky situation. I think both fan bases, the Blue Jays and the Mariners, are at the very least restless right now because when you do as well as both of those teams did last season, and both teams, think about it, man, like they're so similar. Obviously, the Blue Jays got further, but their seasons ended in very similar ways. Like heartbreaking fashions where they both thought they were about to win a Game 7. Like the Blue Jays felt just a few outs away from a Game 7 World Series win. The Mariners felt just a couple innings away from a Game 7 ALCS victory over the Blue Jays, and it slipped away for both of them. So I think both fan bases were hoping and maybe even just assuming and expecting both of these teams to come in and start kicking ass from the beginning. And that just has not happened for different reasons. Like you mentioned, we've already beaten the injury thing to death with the Blue Jays. Here's what I'll say. On paper, but if you're comparing these two teams, on paper, the Mariners would seem to be in a better spot. I mean, they're 4-9, just like yikes. That's a yikes start. But if you look behind, peek behind the curtain a little bit, 2.62 team ERA. Third best in the league. Like that's all right. The pitching, which we know is supposed to be great, it's been great. Okay, so that's good news. The offense has been god awful. 184 team average, the worst in Major League Baseball. The worst. 133 strikeouts, second worst in major leagues. This is where I am concerned. This team, before last year, they were so hamstrung by the strikeouts in their lineup, and it little by little got better, but there is still a lot of strikeout in that lineup. Adding Josh Naylor was nice because he's not a big strikeout guy. And then adding Brendan Donovan, who, by the way, has been one of the best hitters in baseball so far. Another guy who doesn't really strike out. I thought the strikeout issues was going to be a little bit behind them. Not to say the other guys are going to change their stripes, right? Like the Cal Raleighs of the world, Julio Rodriguez. Like there's strikeout in these guys' games, and that's not going to go away, but counteract it with this. The problem is Brendan Donovan's been amazing. Cal Raleigh has been one of the worst hitters in baseball. Randy Arozarena, there's lots of talk in Seattle about like management might have to have a hard conversation soon about what Randy's future in Seattle is for many different reasons. So the Brendan Donovan greatness, the pitching greatness just has not resulted in a lot of victories. And Josh Naylor has really struggled. I put up something on Twitter the other day about the worst hitters against the fastball. And that includes all different types of fastballs. Obviously, we talk about the four-seamer the most, but it includes all fastballs. And Josh Naylor is one of the worst hitters in the league right now against the fastball. I feel like if you're going to be a great hitter, you got to be able to hit the fastball and then do decent enough against the off-speed and the breaking balls. So that catches your eye, like what's going on. There was also something out there about how not the entire team, but many guys on the team have lost significant bat speed. And it's like, wait, that's what's going to lead to that? That seems super strange. So there's some strange stuff going on in Seattle. I don't love the vibes if you want to go to the feel category. Just to go to Toronto quickly, even with the injuries, you expect Toronto to play Blue Jays baseball. And what I mean by Blue Jays baseball is batting average, putting the ball in play, and defense. They've done one of those things. The defense is still there. Fourth best team, according to OAA, right? Outs above average. Second best team for runs prevented. So that's still there. That's a good sign. But the team batting average just 227. You named all those guys that have just really struggled or have gone out with injury. So there's reason for it. 16th in the major leagues in team batting average. You're going to need to get some guys back. Vladdy has taken care of it. He's done what he always does. The strikeout rate is incredibly low, right? The swing and miss is incredibly low. He's walking a ton. He might only have, one homer. He hasn't hit for a bunch of power, but he's doing what Vladdy does, and the power will come. He just needs more around him. Springer needs to play like he did last year. And this is the one piece. I mean, Springer's a guy on my fantasy team. So like I had enough faith in him to do maybe not exactly what he did last year, but like still be a really good player. And he hasn't been so far. They're going to need him, especially with all the injuries, to step up here. These guys have to step up. But here's what I'll say. If you're going to compare these two teams, because of the pitching, it's hard not to say that the Mariners are better off right now, even with the worst record. Even with some of those stats I named offensively, just awful. Cal Raleigh and Josh Naylor will have to be better than this. Like there's no way they're going to be this bad all year. In the end, I'm more concerned with Toronto because they're in the harder division and the health is a huge, huge question mark. But to be honest, like I dislike the vibes more in Seattle right now than I do in Toronto. Like I almost decided to say I think Toronto's in a better spot. But like if you look at everything combined, you have to say Seattle's in a little bit of a better spot. But something just seems off there right now.
Yeah, I mean, you can go back to the WBC. We covered it extensively on here with the Naylor piece with Cal Riley and Randy Rosarena. Like, there's some of that stuff that carries over, and it only gets exasperated when you're losing. And you mentioned before the bat speed thing. That was something I picked up on as well. Julio Rodriguez and Randy Rosarena, those numbers are startling for the beginning of the season. And if you dig deep into some of the other writers, Jared Greenspan from MLB is a writer over there, and also Ryan Blake, I should say, excuse me. He was talking about bat speed across hitters, and you can look at weather. There's a lot of conversation about the weather around Major League Baseball affecting it. Seattle, not the warmest place to be around this time of the year. Looking at some of that stuff, Randy Rosarena, is it all weather that is lowering the bat speed by 4 miles per hour early this year? I'm not sure if I buy into that. That to me is concerning, because just as much as we look at Stuff Plus and miles per hour on their fastball for some of these pitchers, that's indicative of a trend, and the decline in bat speed has to be with something. Maybe it's early ramping up for this season. You look at some of these players that did play in the WBC, so you feel like they'd be a little bit warmer to get ready for the year. Looking at some of the Ryan Blake thing, and I think you guys should go out and check it out. He posted this. He said lukewarm on some of the slow starts with some of these players, and he was talking about building a model using over 41,000 swings across 250 hitters, which was controlling for pitch type, velocity, location, and environment. And with his results, again, this is just his study here, the bat speed increases just 0.0197 miles per hour per degree Fahrenheit, or about 0.2 miles per hour per 10 degrees. So that means over a typical range of game temperatures, where about 80% of pitches occur between 58 degrees and 82 degrees, that's roughly a 0.4 miles per hour total swing difference from cold to warm conditions, which means, let's just say a hitter averaging 71.5 miles per hour bat speed might sit around 71.3 miles per hour in colder games and 71.7 miles per hour in warmer weather. So you can have measurable swings back and forth. And looking at the model, it backs it up a little bit further, where about 42% was marginal, and external factors like the pitch speed, which is also up around baseball, the miles per hour for the average fastball, as you alluded to with that Jared Greenspan article he posted about the average fastballs around 94.6 miles per hour, and compare that to about 20 years ago, which was 91.9 miles per hour. There's an increase year over year progressively as we get up there. And it seems like some of the bat speed's not catching up, especially with the weather. So if he's saying it's not fully the weather, I think it also is just, it's April, it's early. Even though the WBC was played, competitive swings in April, if you look at the numbers, and they do back them up, they sit at just 72.7% compared to, look at May, they get all the way up to 92% through September. So there's a massive drop that eventually we get up there and ramping everybody up. It's not because the hitters can't physically swing. It's because they're not fully synced. The timing, pitch recognition, all that stuff plays a part here. And the decision-making is catching up. And it's unfortunate for the Mariners that all those things are coinciding at the same exact time. You got colder weather, you got guys, you got the bad vibes, and that equals a 4-9 start. Now, is that going to say the Mariners are not going to win the AL West and potentially make another World Series run? Hell no. It's a long season. But I think while hitters are losing tenths of miles per hour, pitchers are gaining full ticks, sometimes multiple, and they're changing how their stuff plays entirely. And that's a mix right now that explains why the Mariners pitchers are pitching well, but the hitters on each side aren't. Now, I guess the thing you can throw in here, the wrench, Devin, is why are some offenses clicking? And I guess that's unsure about ramping up different. That's a personality thing, and that's unique to every single hitter.
Yeah, I mean, there is some positive, like there are some things to be excited about in Seattle. Like Cole Young has looked pretty good out there, right? We already talked about Brendan Donovan just kind of getting started right away. Had a little injury scare, but has come back. And the pitching has been good. Andres Munoz has looked really good. I think I read before that he, out of all pitchers, relievers or starters, has the best in-zone swing and miss. So pitches that are strikes, people swinging and missing, whiffing. No one's better than Andres Munoz. So like he's still the guy you want him to be. So that's why I believe they can get right. But some of the hitting stuff really is like, you can't just look past it. Some of the stuff you just read through is that's great stuff right there. Cal Raleigh is probably the guy I'm most concerned about. I think Josh Naylor, you could really go to Josh Naylor. Obviously just gave him the contract. Cal Raleigh, you got to remember here, man, like 60 home run season last year. He was not that good in the second half as a whole baseball player. Kept on popping home runs, but as an entire hitter, you go back and look at his second half stats, wasn't very good. I feel like this started then. WBC, he was terrible, right? And he's been awful now. So that he hasn't been the same hitter as we saw in the first half yeah, I'm sure he'll still hit his home runs, but at what cost? Like, what is he going to hit average wise? Is he going to come through when he needs to put the ball in play? So far, he's had a couple moments, but there's been a lot of bad ones, more bad ones than good ones here. And they're going to need him, man. They're going to, as good as a Julio Rodriguez is out there, I don't feel like he is in the spot where he hasn't shown that he can carry the team yet. Like, I feel like that's going to be him one day. He's going to be able to do that. And sometimes we see it for parts of the season, but I feel like Cal Raleigh's got to lead this team offensively. And we haven't seen it so far. So it's an interesting spot for Seattle, but I do think they have a better shot at bouncing back than Toronto. Toronto will reassess once they get some guys back.
So before we move on to the next segment, I guess my question to you is, what's the amount of games that's perfect for you to stop saying it's early? Because I think we're in agreement that 13 games is too small of a sample size. Some people look at Memorial Day. Some people look at the 4th of July. When are you looking at the record and being like, this is a problem?
All right, that's a fair question. That's a good poll to put up. Maybe I'll put a poll up later. It pops in my head, I feel like 40 games in. I think 40 games in, you're about a quarter of the way through the season. At that point, I feel like there's some good hard evidence that this is more than just a blip on the radar, and there's some problems going on here. With that being said, as a Met fan, I can tell you can play really well for the first quarter of the season, and that's not the whole story of your season. So I'm not saying 40 games in, you know exactly what's going to happen. That's not. I don't want people to get me wrong here. I'm just saying I think you can stop saying, it's early. 40 games in, maybe even a little less than that, to be honest. But I'll put the number at 40. What do you think?
I agree with that, and I also think it depends on how slow of a start. We watched with the Red Sox over the course of the first 10 games, being the fact they were 2-8. There were chants, as you posted on our Twitter at Tablesetters Pod, sell the team, and there's a lot of bad vibes happening with what's happening. That they've won 2 straight. Things have quieted down a little bit, but it does cure all. If you were to go, let's just say 2-10, that 12 game span, just looking at it for a couple hours they play every day, but to look at a record that's 2-10 for a team that's supposed to be competitive, there's some optics that, as I mentioned before in the beginning of this podcast, it's contagious. Well, all of a sudden it's like, we can't win. And it becomes like a visual thing. So looking at some of these teams that are 4-9, 4-8, and I think the worst record in baseball right now is 4-8 for some of the teams that are bottom feeding. The Nats are 4-8, and then we've seen a lot of good things from them. As bad as the Vibes have been in San Francisco, they're 5-8. So none of this is something that can't be overcome. But I think when you look at the optics of the expectations of some of these teams, it just feels different. And you mentioned the Vibes in Seattle. It's impossible to ignore that. I'm sure Brady Farkas is talking about it on his pod, Refuse to Lose. Check him out over there for great Mariners coverage. There's something to be said about the stuff coming into the year and the expectations. Pair that with the pressure of trying to get back to where they were last year. And then also on top of it, the stuff that we saw in the World Baseball Classic, it is impossible to ignore, because when you're struggling through 13 games, that stuff rears its head. If they were to go 9-4 or 13-1 or whatever the record might be, people start to feel better and you can start laughing around. It's almost like the Reggie Jackson effect with the New York Yankees. You're winning, but they all hate each other. It's okay though. But when you're losing and these things rear its head, you saw it with the New York Mets last year. Everyone was ready to choke each other, making all these stories around New York. But if they were to win it, you'd write books about them like you did with the 1986 Mets. That's how it goes.
You're right there. The bad guys won right there in the background. But and they're still talking about that in New York, by the way, with the Juan Soto Lindor thing. Do they actually hate each other? Of course, right when Soto goes out, the Mets go 4-0, and that's a headline. Mets are 4-0 without Juan Soto.
Well, dude, what's your thoughts on the opening line? Home opener, the whole opening line. Juan Soto has this handshake with everybody. He literally does I think he just slapped Lindor's hand and didn't do anything else. Did you take anything from that or no?
I didn't love it because, here's the thing, man. We talked to Keith Rad, their radio broadcaster, pretty shortly after last season ended. That's kind of been the time we've had him on, a couple weeks after the season ends. And we asked him about it, and I feel like a lot of people in his position would kind of try to talk around it. He didn't. He addressed it, and he said, things were a little weird between them at times. They're definitely not best friends. So I don't love it because it just feeds the media and Twitter and all that more. And as a Met fan, you don't want to hear about this stuff. You want to hear that everyone's getting along fine. They're great. I don't know. Well, there's probably more to come in that story, but I'm hoping it goes away. I don't think it's going to, but I hope it does.
I mean, the one Met that used to be there continues to irk the Yankees. Jeff McNeil playing really well against the Yanks at Yankee Stadium.
Did he? Yeah,
continuing to
okay.
get hits against. Yeah, he's playing well
Still
there.
weird.
Today, I mean, yeah, it's weird seeing him in an athletic
He
uniform.
looks like, listen, we're seeing a lot of Mets in different uniforms this year. I think the guy that looks the weirdest is Jeff McNeil in the green and yellow.
He's swagged out too.
strange.
He's got a nice like bedazzled belt too that he was wearing a little bit like, yeah. So
Good for Jeff.
he's
Happy
feeling
Jeff.
himself. Yeah. But if only we get the Vegas stadium built sooner than later. But let's move into our next segment called "What's the Word?" And we have some
need a
big news
drop.
around. Baseball.
We need a drop,
What do you
but
want-
not now. But I mean, we'll need to get one. We need to figure out a good drop for what's the word, because I like this segment. I think we should do it more often.
Well, let's figure it out. Let's just use the Castellanos one just for it.
As there's a drive in a deep left field by Castellanos, it will be a home run.
So what's the word there? So let's start with the Jorge Soler, Reynaldo Lopez fight. So just for some context here, I'm going to ask you for your word, Devin. So we know that Jorge Soler had some good numbers against him. To be specific, 14 for 23, a 609 average, 5 home runs, 3 doubles, including a 2-run home run earlier in that game. Soler was then hit by a 96-mile-per-hour fastball, followed by another pitch that went high near his head. We saw the confrontation. Soler charged the mound. Some great clips posted around baseball, throwing some haymakers over there. Bench is cleared. We saw them issuing a 7-game suspension to both players. Lopez is later reduced to 5 games after settlement. Your thoughts on this? Your thoughts on the transparency that Soler said, I'm coming out to the mound, I'm beating your ass.
My word is refreshing. Refreshing is the word. Real punches thrown. How often do we see that in a baseball quote unquote fight? A manager tackle, Walt Weiss, now being recruited by the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, he was with the Braves while Soler was there, so they know each other. Soler didn't seem to take offense of it at the time, but I also don't know if he realized that Weiss was the guy who took him down. I actually wonder if anyone's asked him about that. But a manager tackle. I think Jonah Heim was the Braves catcher, right? Was he behind the dish? I believe it was. Whoever the Braves catcher was at the time, I'm pretty sure it was Heim, completely ignored his duty as a catcher to protect his pitcher. Go back and watch that clip. One thing that's AJ Przinsky talked about this on Foul Territory, and I don't always agree with AJ Przinsky, to be honest, but he made a good point. He said your duty as a catcher is to, as soon as you have any sign of the guy charging the mound, you get on that dude and do not let him hurt your pitcher. If you go watch Heim, he has no interests in trying to restrain Jorge Soler and takes a sweet time trying to get involved. But to me, the word is refreshing, super entertaining. I know I shouldn't be positive about people fighting and all the violence and that stuff, but as a baseball fan, there's so often you see these benches clear and just nothing happens. People just stand around and joke around. It was refreshing to watch this one.
Yeah, Jonah Heim was behind the dish. Drake Baldwin was DHing on this day, so it was him that didn't have uphold his catcher duty. But mine is understandable. Kind of piggyback on what you said. I mean, I don't blame Soler for getting out there and holding his ground, because like if you don't want, that is his livelihood, and you don't want to make sure you're protecting yourself. But our next one is Connor Griffin is a now recipient of a 9-year extension and $140 million through 2034. He's locked up. Clearly betting on some upside over the track record, locking in a 19-year-old to become sort of this trend. We saw it with Colt Emerson with the Mariners. We've seen it in the past. It hasn't worked out with some teams. It has worked out with others. It is the largest deal in team history, surpassing Brian Reynolds. And maybe there's a shift in organizational approach. Paul Skeens had an interesting quote about this, saying he's going to be the face of Pirates baseball for a long time. So that might be the funniest thing he could say without trying to be funny, or maybe he was intentionally to be funny. But what's your word on this?
I'm going to go with beacon, as in a beacon of hope for Pirates fans. To me, I mean, if this is a sign of things to come where they're actually doing smart baseball decisions, right? They've locked up a potential perennial all-star. So there should be celebration here or not here, but there in Pittsburgh. It's a beacon of hope. Hopefully it's a sign of things to come.
Mine is precedent. I think hopefully it sets a new standard for Pirates baseball. We've seen them this offseason just kind of change the trajectory. We mentioned the Brandon Lau stuff. We mentioned them just trying to add pieces. And this is, again, maybe this is the standard for how Pirates might handle elite young talent going forward. Let's see if Paul Skeens stays in a Pirates uniform. Maybe winning changes his mind. If they get into a playoff series and they do some things, maybe that changes him to say, I'm going to stay near the Allegheny. But let's move to the next one. I feel like we talk about Tony Vitello a lot, and he was volunteering some issues the Giants clubhouse have had that we haven't seen. So he's been very candid in his approach. Obviously, we saw him opening night on Netflix talking about things and kind of putting his foot in his mouth. He acknowledged that the Giants have already had 3 minor clubhouse incidents, including a visible moment, obviously, where Matt Chapman yelled, "Catch the fucking ball," Casey Smith during a mound visit, also referencing 2 additional situations that were kept internal. He went on to frame those moments as just being competitive intensity. He talked about the team playing their best 3 games following those incidents, but the comments come amid, obviously, their slow start, a stretch. They had 3 straight losses to the New York Mets, and Chapman made an ill-advised base running mistake being thrown out to a steal attempt in the 9th inning. Vitello downplayed the severity of the incidents, calling them, quote, harmless. What is your thoughts on this? What's your word here?
It's not really a word, but I'm going with TMI, as in too much information. Tony, TMIT. I think that we could maybe patent that because I think we're going to be saying it a lot. Too much information, Tony. I don't know, man. I said this last time we talked about him. Like, I liked the hire. I'm rooting for him. I like him as a person, but like, there's been a lot of head shaking moments here. I know some people see this kind of stuff as charming and refreshing, to use the word I used before, of like someone actually giving us more. But if they don't start winning consistently, I think this act is going to wear thin really quickly, not just with fans, but with players too. Maybe more so with players who are like, why are you volunteering this information? Like, they saw us curse each other out on the mound, but you didn't have to tell them about the other 2 things that have happened in the last few days behind closed doors. It's like, keep it there. Managers expect the players to keep it between closed doors, and you're, I don't know, man. It's TMI is the not word, but that it's appropriate here.
Mine is undisciplined for the same reasons that you talked about as well. I just feel like, again, it's too much information. It's again, redirecting sort of this transparency and trying to be cute about it, but it's only cute, as we mentioned before. They started 3-7. They're 5-8 now. They were 3-4 in that week. It's not the time to be cute about this. And
Agreed.
I think that is it's about recognizing time and space. There's a lot on the line here. You know, I looked at just the history just of coaches, and respect has to be earned, of course. And hopefully he has command of that clubhouse. You know, there's a lot of stories about McDaniel from the Dolphins, where there's podcasts coming out from Dolphins players or people that are in the know that apparently players are putting their hands on him. Like, if that's happening, I know the NFL is different than Major League Baseball, but he has to be the leader from the top. And if things leak out like this, and he's making light of clubhouse incidents this early in the year, and who knows how many incidents happen behind the scenes that we don't know about. Rule number 1 is protect your guys. And it feels like he's not protecting his guys. That's why he's undisciplined.
Yeah, like I said, undisciplined is perfect. It's going to wear thin real quick unless they start winning a bunch of games, which I don't know. I watched that Giants-Mets series. They do not strike me as a team that is suddenly going to go on a run. That's just how I feel.
No, yeah, they don't feel like they're a team that can beat you in many ways. They're reliant on pitching well, and it seems like their offense is going to have to go out there and score some runs, but they don't feel capable of scoring as many runs as they should be in that ballpark. And, you know, 41 runs scored, 57 runs against, a negative 16 run differential. It's not good enough. But shout out to the Rockies. Now that I'm looking at they're a plus 10 run differential. I want to give some love to the Rockies on this pod, dude. They've been playing good ball.
Yeah, man. A Rumfield out there has been like the best. I know everyone's talking about Chase DeLauder, as they should be, but I think OPS wise, Rumfield's at the top of the list among rookies. So a guy that no one's talking about because he's in Colorado, tearing it up. Let me give you one more. This wasn't on the list, but the Red Sox came up a few minutes ago and made me think of this one. What's your word? I'm putting you on the spot here because usually we have time to prepare for this, but what's your word off the top of your head for Wilson Contreras sliding right into the, I believe, second baseman of the Brewers or shortstop after being hit by a Woodruff pitch, and then later saying, if it happens again, I'm going to take one of them out?
I would say it's awkward because his brother's on the other end of it. Like, there's brother was involved as well.
That's good.
So
yeah.
And that's a weird situation that feels like we don't have the full context. I know they reference the slide, but being that they have a history with each other, I wonder what the other context is. So I want the full story. Add more to that with the Boston stuff. There's other weird vibes going on. I know they won 2 straight, but there's something going on in the Boston clubhouse.
Well, he's been hit 24 times in his career by the team, and I think someone tweeted out that's like never happens in the history of baseball, like that many times in this time span, be hit by the same team. And Woodruff himself has hit Contreras, I don't know what it was, like 7 times or something like that. So to me, it's like kind of a valid response. Did you think? I didn't think the slide was dirty, but then again, you and I grew up watching baseball and becoming
it was
fans of
hard nosed.
baseball.
It was from a bygone era. That's what it felt like. The slide was hard nosed, and it felt like he was trying to. If you saw that slide in October baseball, you felt like the guy wanted to win. I didn't see anything wrong with the slide.
Spikes were a little up, but like I don't know. I didn't have a problem with it. I was curious if you felt the same way.
No, I definitely agree. I like that style of baseball. I don't like the glad handing and the hugging at second base. Like, go out there and try to win the game. And there feels like and again, his brother being involved in shit like this is that added a weird, awkward dynamic. But I didn't know the number was that egregious that he was hit 24 times. And that's a lot that doesn't feel like
I'd be pissed.
Come on.
I'd be pissed too. Like, quit it.
Yeah. So let's go over to the division leaders. We talked a lot about the teams struggling, but there are some teams at the top of the division, or the divisions, I should say, that are playing good baseball. So I guess let's start with the most believable team. Our division leaders, as we speak, in the American Leagues, the American League East, the New York Yankees. The Central is the Guardians. The Rangers hold the top of the West. And the National League are the Braves at 8-5, the Reds at 8-4 for the Central, and of course, the beloved Los Angeles Dodgers at 9-3. Who's the most believable? If you want to leave the Dodgers on the side, I completely understand that.
Yeah, we're going to disqualify the Dodgers for this segment because we both are sitting here. We'll tell you right now, like, they are the most believable in all of Major League Baseball to win the World Series. Like, if they go do that.
Dodger baseball.
Exactly. Yep. But pushing them aside, my most believable team among those teams that you just listed is, and I think this is the only answer here, I'd be shocked if you have a different one, the New York Yankees. Ben Rice leads the league in OPS. Giancarlo Stanton is hitting absolute lasers all over the field. Aaron Judge has popped some home runs, had some good moments, but he still hasn't gotten hot yet. Just wait until he does. The potential of the offense mixed with the absolute pitching dominance makes this team as dangerous as they have been in a very, very long time. And that includes the year they went to the World Series just a couple of years ago against the Dodgers. They have reinforcements coming, right? Carlos Rodon, eventually Garrett Cole, of course, as well. They've shown the ability, and this is maybe what I like most, like, aside from just the numbers piece that I just named a couple things, Ben Rice, right? And there's other ones you could point to as well. The pitching's been unbelievable. Cam Schlittler, I know, finally had a not as great start, but has looked like a superstar. What I like aside from the numbers is they've shown the ability to do two things: come back when they're down early and hold on to those small late leads, even when it gets a little dicey at the back end. So you got to love what you've seen. I know they lost tonight to the A's, but you got to love what you've seen from the Yankees so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe that the offense hasn't reached its full potential. Look at the differential being that they're at plus 26 after tonight's loss, and you feel really good about the offense. But look at some of the other offensive juggernaut teams. And we know the Yankees led the league in runs scored last year. Comparatively, the Astros, as we mentioned before in the conversation, they have 79 runs scored, and the Yankees are sitting at 54. And we haven't seen them humming yet. So if the pitching contributes at this same pace, which they won't, but at one point they were giving them single-digit runs for the first run of the season. And you look at some of the numbers they're putting up, and you're starting to mark specific things. I believe Ben Rice, they listed a stat on Yes today about how he was the first Yankee in history to have the amount of walks, the amount of hits, and the amount of, I believe it was singles. I'd have to get the actual stat, but it was essentially a number that was insane. I know baseball dives into Elias and Baseball Savant dives into like numbers that are egregious, but in the history of Yankees, through the first 11 games, they have the amount of walks, and the Yankees are walking at a clip that is absolutely insane. I believe against the Marlins, they walk 30 times, and they continue to walk at a huge pace. And that is indicative of lack of control on the other side, but it also is patience from a team that's not fully synced as an offense quite yet. And I believe this offense, once it's fully going, once the weather gets warmer in the Bronx, this is a team that's super, super dangerous. And you mentioned the reinforcements, whether it's Garrett Cole or Carlos Rodon, you have reinforcements coming. Let's not forget, too, like, they have the ability to go out and make some trades at the deadline and figure this out. But this bullpen is kind of the bullpen you thought you would get last year. I know Bednar gave up the run today, but between Duvall and between Bednar and between even like Jake Bird coming out here, they're pitching in spots and they're coming up in big spots and finding a way to get it done. And the Yankees are eventually going to score runs. So if they can reduce the offense on either side and score runs at the clip they were last year, and we've shown that they can do it, that's a scary mark for the rest of the American League. I'm going to find the Ben Rice stat while you're talking.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. So have Aaron Judge already and then have Ben Rice seemingly becoming like his Robin, maybe more than a Robin to Judge's Batman, leading the league in OPS. Like, it's unbelievable. It's really crazy how quickly he's become that. And we'll see if he can keep it going. But I do think they're so dangerous when you put that all together. And like you said, when the offense really does start humming and they put up more runs, man, you pair that with that pitching, and it's hard not to look at them like, we came into the season thinking, man, the AL East is so unpredictable. Like, any team could win that division. They're all pretty good. And now you're thinking, like, if the Yankees don't win the AL East, I'd be shocked.
So here's the stat with Ben Rice, and I believe this is the one they had put on there, but there's a lot of them you can go from. Through April 7th, Ben Rice became the first New York Yankee since Mickey Mantle in 1956 to record 10-plus runs, 10-plus RBIs, and a 519-plus on base in the first 8 games of the season, joining company like Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth. And there's other stats to go with what he's been able to do. He's establishing himself as this middle of the order bat. We've all, like, again, it's no secret around baseball, even in fantasy baseball circles, like, people are looking at him as a golden opportunity to put in your lineup. So it's not like Ben Rice is a guy that we looked at as like, this is a shock. I think for us, we'd be remiss, even the biggest optimist for him, for us to say that we thought he'd be leading the league or even leading the Yankees in all these numbers is insane. If you would be able to switch his on base or his slugging percentage with Aaron Judge, you wouldn't be shocked if Aaron Judge had those numbers. If he's anything close to what he is right now throughout this whole year, it is absolutely insane to think about. And again, in Yankee Stadium, this is a guy built for this is a stadium built for left-handed power hitters of the right field short porch. You guys know the story at this point. Man, he has been the Yankees' best all-around hitter. And Giancarlo Stanton too, like, he stole a base the other night. He was moving around pretty damn good. Wow. They put some overlays. If the Yankees get shit from Stanton and Rice at this level, and then you add in, let's not forget about Jazz Chisholm, and a guy that people are looking at as a dark horse to be potentially an MVP candidate. Aaron Judge, of course, is a superhuman. I mean, insane. A 370 average on his own. God, I can't be happier with what we're seeing from Ben Rice so far.
Yeah, and you mentioned a little bit ago that, like, they can go at the deadline as well. And I mean, Jason Dominguez, I don't think Yankee fans ever thought Jason Dominguez would end up being trade bait, but, like, he's playing really well, right? He played really well in spring. He's played really well so far in AAA. Like, maybe that is what he is. I still don't think that's happening, right? Because Trent Grisham, right, is only on a 1-year deal. Who knows? I think they still want to keep him here. I'd still be shocked if Cashman moved him. But if there's a white whale out there, like somebody that, wow, like, we get this guy, like, we're just as good as the Dodgers, if not better, maybe they do that. Like, maybe this is the year where they push all their chips to the middle of the table and go all in. But you got to love what you've seen so far, especially if you're a Yankee fan. But on the other side of things, out of those 6 division leaders, we got to go on the negative side. Sorry, that's baseball. You're going to give the positive. Not a lot of baseball fans are extreme optimists because you got to see the other side. But for the least believable team as a division leader, I don't get me wrong. I like this team. I like them. I don't want their fans to want to kill me, but I think it's the Cincinnati Reds. Okay, and I think there's some obvious things to point to here. Statistically, after tonight, their run differential, -2. They're in first place, -2 run differential. I do believe Rhett Lauder and Chase Burns are absolute difference makers for this franchise going forward. But for this year, you have to wonder and question how limited they could be inning-wise, right? Are these guys going to get shut down at some point? Are they going to limit their innings? Like, what is the plan for those 2 guys? And I think that, harms their potential a little bit. Nick Lodolo, blister issues. Hunter Green, hopefully back in July. So there's, as good as some of the pitching is, you got to wonder how much you're going to get out of all of it. The offense has scored just 38 runs, dead last in Major League Baseball. It's pretty shocking that you can score the least runs in baseball through 12 games and be in the front of your division. That's how good the pitching's been. The pitching has absolutely carried them. It's just not sustainable. So for me right now, the answer is the Reds.
Yeah, I looked at the Reds and those stats definitely jump out. I'm going to go with the Texas Rangers. Look at what they've done. That division, we mentioned some of the holes there, being that the Astros have their injury to Hunter Brown. We mentioned the Mariners struggles. The Athletics are who we think they are as far as their pitching goes, playing in that ballpark. And of course, the Angels, we're waiting for something from them. I just look at the Texas Rangers, and they've won 3 straight at this point, sitting at 7-5. Their differential is in the positive, only 44 runs scored. I just think that that team over the course of 162 doesn't feel like they are a team that can be the prime of that division. I know we saw a few years ago, there's a lot of talent there, whether it be Jacob deGrom or you name the guy. We know that they won the World Series a few years ago. I just don't buy it for them. They're the least believable for me. I'd have to see a bigger stretch for them. I don't think, watching some of the close games they've had, they've been able to squeeze them out. I don't think it's sustainable right now. And there's a lot of close game variance that happens for a team like that you have to prove it. There's been a few years in a row now at this point that the Texas Rangers have been a team at the bottom of the standings. And right now, a 12-game sample size feels really light before we know anything about what they're doing.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. They were my runner-up in this discussion. And I feel the same way. Like they're going to have to prove a little more than whatever it is, 12 games or so to me before I really buy into them as a big threat in that division. I believe my preseason rankings, I had them finishing 4th in the division. So they're going to have to convince me a little bit more.
So we talked a lot about the Braves and their lack of offense during the preseason. Anything changed for you? I know it's 13 games, but they do have a plus 34 run differential at this point, scoring 66 runs. Ronald Acuna Jr. hasn't gotten going yet. He's still asleep at the wheel. We haven't seen anything. Do you feel any different about this Braves team? Maybe galvanized by the fight with Reynaldo Lopez? Is there something different of the vibes in Atlanta?
I mean, pitching's been fantastic. Offensively, I've always thought they could be a good offensive team. I think my criticism was like they're not as deep offensively as they once were, like the Jerkson Profar thing. Right, they're going to get Ha-Seong Kim back eventually. But Mauricio Dubon has been really good for them, like hit better than you expect, and he's an unbelievable fielder. And I think the most shocking thing about the Braves is you look at the defensive metrics, and they're at the top. The Atlanta Braves are at the top of the defensive metrics, which is not something people expected from them. So yeah, all 3 phases of the game, like offensively, they're going to get even better once Acuna starts hitting. Pitching has been much better than we expected. I don't know if they can sustain that. And then the fielding has been great. So yeah, they're gonna obviously be a threat in the NL East. I don't think I'm surprised other than the defense.
So let's shift the conversation to the last place teams. And if you had to put money down on one of these last place teams making the postseason, just for context for everybody out there, I'll go through the last place teams like we just did with the first place teams. The Red Sox are sitting in last place for the American League East. The White Sox sitting in last for the Central. The Mariners sitting at 4-9 for the West, being in last place. And the NL East, the Nats are there at 4-8 for the NL East. For the NL Central, the Cubs sitting at 6-6. And the Giants for the NL West, Tony Vitello saying things are fine. We're all fighting, but it's all good at 5-8. Who are you putting money on to make the playoffs?
All right. So if I'm going through those last place teams, my team I would put some money on is the Cubs. I know the pitching, like I said earlier, is an enormous question mark now at this point with the Horton injury. And you got to hope Boyd comes back fine from the biceps and Edward Cabrera can give you more innings, like I said earlier in the episode. But I believe in the offense. And I think you said the same thing. I do believe in this offense, very, very much so. I believe in Palencia at the back end of the bullpen, right? Momentum from the WBC. I think he's legit. My only other potential answer to this question was the Seattle Mariners, who we talked about at length. So I'm not going to go back through all my thoughts on Seattle. I will just reiterate that I feel like something more seems off there than just the numbers, like the vibes. So I lean towards the Cubs, putting my money there. And they have plus 12 run differential. And it's not like their record is in the gutter. What are they? They're 6-6. So it's kind of circumstance that they're a last place team right now.
Yeah, I agree. The Cubs are going to be fine, in my opinion. But I would put big money on the Boston Red Sox for making the playoffs. I know the vibes are super negative right now, but I like this whole lineup. And the one thing that does shake me a bit on this is Roman Anthony. Like the stuff we're seeing with the throwing just feels off. That feels very scary to me. And that, we saw that happen in the worst case scenario with Chuck Knobloch. I know it's not the same thing, but it does sort of compound on itself. I just think, Boston, if you look at just the way they've played, they're 3-3 at home. Majority of their losses came on the road, 1-5. So playing at the Fens is something that they look at as a home field advantage. Even though the fans are very down on them, like I said, Boston media is super down on them. I look at them as an opportunity to get 4-8. I don't even know what the DraftKings odds have them at making the postseason right now. They're a team that has a lot of young talent. They're going to shift things around. I trust Alex Cora to go through that. Not to mention they have a top tier dog at the top of that rotation with Garrett Crochet.
Yeah.
This is a team that can easily turn this around, and a good week will certainly change the perspective of who they are. But the Boston Red Sox, to me, out of all these teams, I feel pretty damn confident they would make the postseason. I forget if I had them in the postseason for our predictions, but there's something about this season that looks like Boston could be a threat to be reckoned with. And you're going to look back at this story being like, remember when Boston was 4-8 and everyone, or 2-8, and everyone thought they were dead to rights? Baseball's a long season, and the Red Sox are built on that shit.
You and I have switched. Last year, if you remember, I was all in on Boston from the get-go. Had them in the World Series in my preseason predictions, and you were not in on them. And this year, I am not in on them much at all, and you are. So we've completely switched here. Can I give you one more what's the word here? Another one is popping in my head. Did you see?
Sure.
Did you see? You mentioned throwing problems. Did you see the Orion Kerkering thing? His first outing back. How the baseball gods tested him, dude.
No,
his first outing back. A little dribbler in front of home plate that he has to go run off the mound and get, and tries to throw to first. I'm pretty sure he threw it away. It's like, man, the baseball gods are testing Kerkering. I won't make you give a word because you haven't seen it yet, but if anyone listening hasn't seen it, Steve, you haven't seen it, go look at it. It's just unbelievable how baseball works sometimes, that like the very first time he's out there, that's what he gets.
My word is probably like a proper noun. I just think of Tosh.0. It's like you get the ability to reestablish yourself.
Oh yeah,
I forget what he called the segment, but like you have the chance to make things right. And like for him, and he threw it away, and that's almost like hopefully he's able to look past this. But I don't know if he can. Like that's something that I don't know. It's heartbreaking to think of a guy as talented as he is. You don't want him to always be known for that, and I don't know what it would take. And maybe that's a conversation that we can dedicate a whole podcast to about a whole career. I mean, you watch a guy like Bill Buckner. Biggest stage of his life. This is a great baseball player. When you ask any layman baseball fan or even experienced baseball fan, what do you think about when you think about Bill Buckner? And every single person out there, don't lie, you guys think of the play in the 1986 World Series.
Of course.
That's a shame, right?
Yeah.
And for Kerkering, I'm not saying that was the biggest stage, but certainly if he doesn't overcome and pitch, everyone's going to remember the Orion Kerkering. It will become a verb. You pulled a Kerkering, and that you don't want that.
Yeah, no, if he gets lit up this first month or two of the season, he's going to be booed out of Philadelphia. Like let's be honest.
All right, well, let's get into our red hot and ice cold segment here. Devin, I'll let you take the lead here. Let's start with our red hot with our hitters, and also I believe you have a pitcher to throw my way as well, right?
Yeah, so I did. So red hot, I have a pitcher and a hitter. Ice cold, I believe I went with two batters because the pitching, I'm still giving them a chance there, but I'll give you my first red hot here. And to be honest, there's a lot of pitchers you could go with here. Like I won't name a bunch of honorable mentions because you may name one, and I don't want to take that spotlight, but Taj Bradley's my guy here. Listen, traded to Minnesota last year from Tampa. It was kind of surprising at the time because he came up as a big time prospect for Tampa Bay, and it just never could kind of squeeze everything out of him. Couldn't figure it out, which was surprising because Tampa usually does get the best out of those type of guys. Wasn't surprising to see them move somebody, like they do that all the time, but never really got the best of him. The reputation went down a little bit. Didn't do much in his first time in Minnesota. He looks like a little bit of a different pitcher. He's always had the tools as far as some of the stuff goes. It's changed the pitch mix as far as usage. So far, his first few times out, 31.4% K rate. That is 11th best in the league. 5.7% walk rate, also 11th best. That's notable to see he's not walking dudes. That could be a problem for Taj Bradley. 1.08 ERA, 7th best in the majors right now. If you want to go to more kind of advanced stuff, in zone swing and miss, which again is one of my favorites. Like how much can you get swing and miss in the zone? Sure, the chase and the swing and miss on the chase is great. I want to see guys be able to get the ball past people in the zone as well. 19%, which is right between Christopher Sanchez and Sandy Alcantara. So that's a pretty good number being in the mix with those two dudes. Out of zone swing and miss percentage, 48.8%. That's 16th best in the league. Whiff percentage is 28%, 15th best. The splitter looks like an absolute legitimate weapon so far, and maybe a game changer for him. He's hit a triple digits a few times on the fastball at 100. I was very skeptical. I made a skeptical pickup of him in our fantasy league, thinking like, all right, I liked what I saw here. I'll keep him for one more go around. Don't know how he's going to do against Detroit. He looks fantastic against Detroit. And I'm holding on to him right now because right now he's looked like one of the best pitchers in the league. I still want to see more from him, but he has gotten my attention. So he's my first red hot here.
So I'm going to switch it up. I'll go to offense first, and I'll give you my pitcher after. I'm going to go with CJ Abrams for my hitter. And again, early right now, and he's been sort of this all-around player in fantasy baseball if you're marking a player as success in that way. But he's putting together one of the more complete stretches over this past week for himself in his career. 364, his OPS is 1.409. He's impacting every part of the game. I think looking at just what we're seeing from him, he's hit 4 home runs, he has 11 RBIs, but he's getting on base at a 500 clip, and he's creating pressure. He has 4 stolen bases. He's forcing defenses to account for him multiple ways, and the discipline's there as well. So we're seeing some 6 walks to 6 strikeouts. So hopefully that's more of indicative of him being able to walk a little bit more. This lifts his whole profile if he's able to walk more. And I think we've always looked at CJ Abrams as a potential 5-tool player, and we know what he can bring to the table. Obviously, the discipline issues last year with casino stuff, maybe he's learned a lesson. Maybe the Nats have seen something from him of like, this is a guy that can be truly a franchise-altering player. Short stretch, of course, early in the season, but I'm really liking what I'm seeing from CJ Abrams. He looks polished at this major league level right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. He absolutely destroyed me in a points league, head-to-head points league, ours, right? For those listening, he basically won the matchup, which ended up being very, very close. And he was the biggest difference maker. So he was very hot to begin the season. My hitter here in the red hot section is Yordan Alvarez. Man, I could sing this guy's praises all day. Listen, if you're a real baseball fan, you know this guy is a top tier hitter, and it's all about health for him. Like, he is the next guy you should talk about when you're talking about the best hitters in the league. After you mention Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani, the next name out of your mouth should be Yordan Alvarez. Home runs 4, tied for second in the league. K percentage just 13%. And one of the things I love about him, Aaron Judge and Shohei, they're going to strike out at a pretty high clip. Like that, if you're looking for a knock on one of those guys, that's one thing you could say. Like, they're both going to strike out at a pretty high clip. They obviously make up for it, but to be this good of a hitter and only strike out 13% of the time with all that power, it's just rare. It's rare to have that big pop and strike out only 13% of the time. Walk percentage, 24.1%, third in the league, super high, takes his walks. Slugging, 730, third in the league. OPS, 1249, second in the league. Barrel percentage, if you want to go to some of that stuff, 22.6% barrels, 8th in the league. In zone contact rate. Don't throw it in the zone of this dude, guys. 93.8% in zone contact rate. So I put this up earlier on Twitter, and I liked this one. Sometimes you find good little things. There's 33 hitters coming into today, qualified hitters, with a in zone contact rate of 90% or above. The only one on that list with a slugging percentage above 600 is Yordan Alvarez, and he's all the way at 730. Most of those 33 guys, not all of them, but most of them are like speedster type of guys that want to put the ball in play and use their legs, right? Like Chandler Simpson's on there, guys like that. Xavier Edwards, who actually slugging percentage is decent, but a lot of those guys are that type of player. He's the only one that is a true masher power hitter that has that type of contact rate combined with the slugging percentage. He's a hell of a player, and if you're a Houston fan, if you're a baseball fan, honestly, you just keep your fingers crossed that this dude stays on the field and gives us a full season, because I think he's going to wow everybody with what he can do. And you might look up if he plays a full season and see him with more impressive stats than the other two guys I just mentioned, Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge. Like, that is not a potential that is not legitimate. That is a legitimate anything that could happen. That's how good Yordan Alvarez is. So it's been fun seeing him be like this early in the season. I just hope it continues.
Yeah, I mean, he launched one of those balls, I believe it was out of Dyken Park. It just went miles and miles, and the power is just prolific. But you mentioned some of the other skills. He's fine-tuning, which is scary for the rest of the league, and he's always a contender to finish in the top 3 of the American League MVP. So we'll see how that ages this year. For my pitching side, man, like, I don't know if anyone's putting enough praise on Jose Soriano. He has just been otherworldly for the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. You know, the first start against Houston, everyone's looking at it, right? He went 6 strong, got the win, struck out 7, like the control. He walked 4 guys, so that's been sort of his story leading up to this year. Can he improve it? Well, he went against the Cubs, won 2-0, went 6 strong again, got another quality start in his pocket, only struck out 4. So like, okay, maybe the strikeout rate wasn't as good as it has been, or how good it could be. Still walked 2. And he put on quite the gem against the Atlanta Braves on the 6th of April. Went 8 strong, struck out 10, only walked none. And this guy truly, if you look at some of the stuff plus on him, it feels like he's turned the corner of potentially being a true ace. And again, we don't want to over exaggerate and start to overreact to some of these early starts. But as baseball fans, you can look at the numbers. You can sit here and start to pour through some of the stats. It's also about what you're watching. And if you've seen him on the mound, just presence-wise, controlling the pace of the game, it feels like the Angels have this guy as an ace. And we're going to be looking at a guy. His next outing is against the Reds. You mentioned some of their offensive profiles in that team. I think that's another circling that spot. Jose Soriano is rostered in pretty much all leagues. He's 85% rostered in Yahoo. He'll be 100% within the next couple of weeks because undoubtedly this is a guy who has taken the next step, barring injury, because with the increased velocity and the stuff plus, you always worry about the arm and figuring that out. But right now, this dude is otherworldly, and we'll see if he can continue it. This has been, for me, one of the best stories in baseball that nobody's talking about.
Yeah, love it. I'm so glad that he was your other one, because I almost wanted to throw his name out there before, as I mentioned, before I talked about Taj. And I'm glad I waited because he's one of your guys there. He's been so damn good, phenomenal, a godsend to the Angels potentially here. We've seen him flash before, but maybe this is the true breakout where it's like sustained, just, top 15, 20 type of pitcher for the whole year. That's what the Angels need, man. They've needed that for a while, and they're hoping maybe Grayson Rodriguez is that guy. Maybe it's someone they've had all along, and it's a true breakout here. I hope it is, for his sake and their sake. But to go to the other side, ice cold, I have 2 hitters here, and I'll start with this one. This is not a star player, but this is a true everyday player for the San Francisco Giants. Elliot Ramos has really been not good. I'll be nice. And again, he doesn't need to be a star for this team. They have other guys that fill those roles, but if he's going to be an everyday player, he needs to be better than he's been. K percentage is 40.8%. That is the 3rd worst in all of Major League Baseball. And to pair that with the walk percentage, only 4%. So he's not using the walk to get on base very much either. The slugging percentage is 213. The barrel percentage just 3.7% of the time. So there's not signs that he's getting unlucky here. Like, the signs are pointing to no, these are the correct results. So Ramos is my first guy. He needs to be better. He needs to be more, at least serviceable for this team if he's going to be out there every day. And I'll give you my second one just quick here before I turn it over to you. Jazz Chisholm is my second one. The Yankees, we mentioned that the offense has been okay, but not great. And part of the reason I think they haven't hit that greatness yet that they could is Jazz Chisholm really hasn't pulled his weight so far. Defensively, for the most part, he's been great. If you look at the analytics there, he's one of the best defenders in the bigs right now. And he's always going to bring the speed factor too. But 0 home runs, 31% K rate, which is in the 19th percentile of the league. No good. 2.4% walk rate, 5th percentile of the league, so even worse. So that's the theme of these 2 guys, is they're pairing a bad K percentage with also not walking. And that's what I was kind of looking for here. Hitting just 195 and -3 batting run value, 12th percentile in the league. He's in a contract year. I don't know if he's going to be the kind of guy who's pressing here, but he set the expectations for himself super high, throwing that crazy number out before the season saying 50-50, 50 home runs, 50 stolen bases. So he's an easy target right now. Let's be honest. And it's early, right? It's not 40 games in. It's only 12. So it is early. We can keep on saying that for several more weeks, but he's got to be better. And the Yankees have been fine without him doing much, but eventually they're going to need him.
Yeah, eventually that comes to, no one's talking about it because like you said before, the Yankees are winning. So you're able to kind of gloss past that. He's playing defense, as you said before. My guy is a new face in a different place type of guy, and it's Pete Alonso. I mean, if no one's paying attention to what has happened right now for him, look at some of the stats here. Just the last week itself, hitting just 0.83, a 310 OPS over the span, only 2 hits and 24 at bats. You know, today, I think yesterday he had an RBI double, which was the first extra base hit that he's had since his home run against Jacob deGrom. Some of these stats are alarming to say the least. So he has struck out at a career worst 33.3% clip through the first 9 games. And you look at him, you know, he right now is batting 229 overall. And really the low average, I guess you could probably be like, fine, you're hitting for power, right? Right, Pete Alonso, almost like the Star Wars meme where Anakin's looking at Padme. You're hitting for power, right? No, he has 1 home run. Alonso, obviously, I mentioned that the second extra base hit of the campaign against the double on Sunday's game. His average exit velocity and hard hit rate place him in the 93rd and 90th percentile, respectively. So I think people are looking at as that, like, that is a precursor to things to come. But right now, I mean, he signed a big contract with the Orioles to hit home runs, and he's not doing that right now. You mentioned the weather already, and you can make all the excuses you want. He's lacking in what he was supposed to do, and you can't help it. I'm not saying this is the case. I'm not trying to scare anyone, but you can't help but think of Chris Davis when you see that lineup of a prolific power hitter signing a big deal. This is a dude. I mean, you're a Met fan. You've been watching Pete Alonso for a long time. How many years in a row? It's 30 home runs, like easy. Just like chalk it up. 30 bombs from Pete Alonso. He's behind the 8 ball right now, right? Starting the year with 1 home run as of April 8th. That's not saying he can't do it, but it's a guy who's easily, people thought he was going to pop 40 home runs. That's just in his sleep. To have 1 home run through the first stretch of this game is insane to me.
Yeah, and the other thing, I don't think you mentioned it. I apologize if you did, but you talked about exit velocity and stuff like that. I saw someone point out that another big concern is the bat speed is way down. You talked about bat speed with the whole Mariners thing earlier, and you had some great information from the article that weather related that still doesn't add up. So he's in the 62nd percentile of league bat speed right now, which doesn't sound like awful, right? It's above the middle. But it's a big drop for him. Last year, he was in the 91st percentile. The year before that, the 90th percentile. The year before that, the 92nd percentile. So again, yes, those 2 words, it's early. But I mean, that's a big drop there as far as bat speed for a power hitter that, you know, that's concerning that you're going to be able to continue doing what you've always done and what you were brought to Baltimore to do. So as a Met fan, I have no ill will against Pete. I'm rooting for him to be successful in Baltimore. But yeah, not the start he wanted to get off to.
No, and he's not walking at the same rate he should be walking as well. It's like, it's not even, you can look at some of the other hitters where like, oh, this is going to be a guy who's just hitting into some bad luck. You posted in our fantasy baseball chat about someone frustrated with Jose Ramirez, who had a good game today, by the way, of like, oh, he's just hitting into some bad luck. No, Pete Alonso's not. Yeah. This is a complete offensive slump. And I'm not saying that this is the downturn of Pete Alonso and he's going to be Chris Davis, but you can't help but just feel a little bit anxious watching a guy who's usually hitting for power, even during his slumps. Because you talked about him slumping, or even during times where he'd be playing, because he plays every day, by the way. That's the other thing with Pete Alonso. You can get the power and you get the consistency of playing every day. He's not doing much at all. And the fact that we're not getting hitting for power, it raises some red flags. It really does. It's a hitter that he's tied to driving the ball when he's not doing it. It's like, what is going on? His slugging percentage is 125, I believe. So not good.
Yeah, he's hitting 188 as far as batting average. The expected batting average is 228. So like a little bit of bad luck, but you're right. So the other things outweigh that kind of point to like, no, there are some drops here. And I think I also saw that he's getting way less fastballs. And, you know, some people attribute that to being in a different lineup, but the Baltimore lineup is supposed to be deep as well. And you could talk about the Juan Soto effect. I'd still push back on that. Like, people would disagree with me here, but like he hit behind Soto, right? So in my mind, you're not necessarily getting pitched that differently to when you hit behind a guy. If he hit in front of him, all right, we don't want to put this guy on and then have Soto up with men on. so we're going to throw some fastballs. So, no, he hit behind Soto. And I know you could look at it the other way where it's Soto gets on base so much. So now there's guys on base. You don't want to play around with stuff out of the zone as much. Got to put some more stuff in the zone for Pete. I could buy into that argument a little bit, but I don't completely buy into the like, oh, he's getting last fastballs because of this or that. Maybe a little bit. But I will say, as a Met fan, the one pitch I saw him struggle with for a long time, and some seasons were worse than others, and that's when he had his down years, is that outside breaking ball, right? Either sweeper, slider, right, off the outside corner of the plate. He always had a real hard time laying off and actually making contact with that pitch. So we'll see if Pete can bounce back here and be the guy that Baltimore wants him to be.
Yeah, there's a couple of big names really struggling, and I'm more in tune with some of them because I'm sure you guys are out there too. Some dudes that are on your fantasy teams that are like, when are they going to wake up? Ron Acuna Jr. is one of them. I mentioned him by name, despite the Atlanta Braves scoring a lot of runs. He doesn't really seem like he wants to join the party. Today, he went 2 for 4 with 2 doubles, so maybe he's waking up. He walked as well, so like he's figuring it out. But it's frustrating early on, especially as a fantasy baseball player. Of like, you invested a lot of draft capital in these players, and when they're not performing, these weeks start to compound on each other. You're like, God damn, dude, can we get going? Like Corbin Carroll for me just started getting going a little bit more. He ranks 19th in our season, but like he had the 3-4 game against Atlanta, and then he built on it today against the Mets. He beat up on them a little bit today. You need some of these games from these players, and Pete Alonso needs a 3 home run game to kind of snap him out of this, I think.
Yeah, that and maybe that's something we see, but even Baltimore as a whole, just like against, like has that feel of like, shouldn't they be more than this? Like it's gotten off to what's the word here? Speaking of the segment, what's the word? It just hasn't felt right in Baltimore yet. It hasn't clicked. It hasn't clicked yet.
Yeah, we'll see what this team looks like in a couple of weeks. But let's move into our final segment here, coming around third, what we are looking forward to. Let's hit that organ and get to it. All right, Devin. So this is the weekend approaching us. We're recording on Wednesday night, and we have Thursday, and then kind of a light day as Thursdays have been, and then we look forward to a weekend slate of baseball. We're approaching what I think a lot of people would target as a prove-it stretch across the league. I mean, you look at some of the matchups here. I'm going to start here from what I'm looking forward to. I think the headline series, as the aforementioned Texas Rangers are leading the AL West, they're taking on the defending champions Los Angeles Dodgers. Look at the records again, whether you buy the Rangers or not. This is a 7-5 team, faces the 9-3 juggernaut Dodgers, and you got some frontline arms on the mound. Tyler Glasnow, Kumar Rocker on the other side. And they have a Sunday matchup with Jacob deGrom against Roki Sasaki potentially. So we know Roki hasn't been the ace we wanted him to be, all the things that came with international signing. I think it's a measuring stick for the Texas Rangers, and I'm certainly looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'll definitely have my eyes on that one. I'll go with Pirates Cubs, early in division matchup. 2 teams in interesting places. Pirates had that 4-game win streak. Because of it, they're at 7. They've cooled off a little bit the last few days, but they're 7-5. And then the Cubs, like we mentioned, currently, even though they're 6-6, they're in last place in that division, which is a very, very interesting division so far. So I think it's kind of a prove-it series for both teams, right? The Cubs trying to get off the mat just with the Horton news. Pirates trying to prove that little 4-game hot streak was not just a flash in the pan, like they're here to compete. If I'm the Cubs, I'm just trying to hit the ball in the air into the outfield and see if the Pirates can actually catch the ball. Like that should be every team's strategy against the Pittsburgh Pirates, because it's maybe the worst defensive outfield I've seen in my life. But I think that's an early, very, very, very early prove it in division series between the Pirates and the Cubs in Chicago.
Yeah, the other thing I will mention too, we mentioned a lot about Jose Soriano, and you mentioned the Reds pitching. We got 2 of those arms forcing your attention this weekend, where Jose Soriano sitting at 3-0 with a 0.45 ERA, taking on Chase Burns. His ERA sitting at 0.82, 16 strikeouts. That should be fun. When you see multiple starters missing bats like that, I think we're going to see how real either of these breakouts are. I think Jose Soriano has been more impressive, but Chase Burns, let's not sleep on him with all the stuff happening with him. Had a good start against Texas, striking out 9. His first start of the year against the Pittsburgh Pirates, striking out 7. So a lot to be excited about with those young pitchers in Cincinnati, and Chase Burns leading the charge.
Yeah, dude, just electric. And that is a fun one as far as an individual pitching matchup. We've got some good ones, man. Who did we just had? We had Garrett Crochet. Who did Garrett Crochet match up with the other day? Oh, I shouldn't have put it out there if I couldn't name the other guy. But
against the Astros?
Was it against the Astros? Was that the last team they played? They're playing them now? Or the Brew? Oh no, it was Miz.
Yeah, they just
finished
playing the Astros a couple days ago. I'll pull up Crochet's last start.
That was the Miz and
right.
the Miz and Crochet. That's as electric as it gets. I remember Crochet matched up with Chase Burns last year, which was another when you get those matchups, it's just primetime TV. You gotta watch.
Yeah, so he did pitch against Houston before that, but his last start, as you mentioned, was against Milwaukee as well. Crochet is just an absolute dog. And I mean, that's showcase. We love hitters, we love power, we love home runs, but when you have a headline pitching matchup, that definitely drives my attention to be able to watch it. And hopefully we're looking at something that is more exciting as time goes on with some of these other teams and it leads the charge. But, and the other thing I'm watching for is how NBC continues to cover baseball. I think that's another thing to watch as we move towards more Sunday night baseball games and finding ways to continue this drive towards what is going to be Sunday night baseball. And hopefully it starts to feel like big matchup. I believe it's Cleveland and Atlanta happening on Sunday. And I think it might be Chris Sale if it lines up that way. Tanner Bybee potentially on the other side. So hopefully that, fingers crossed, that winds up being Sunday night baseball in a big way. Chris Sale on a big stage, pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. He was beating himself up literally on the mound in his last start as he had a good start going and things unraveled for him, hit a couple guys, literally punched himself in the head. So always entertaining to watch Chris Sale for different reasons.
So we do have some conversation here on Bird Talks Balls in the chat. He's actually helping us out. He actually was looking out for you. He said, Soriano, it's been a pleasure to watch. Also saying that it was Miz taking on Crochet. So we appreciate you, Nick. Thank you for hopping in the chat and supporting us. If you guys also would like to support our show, you guys can follow us at Tablesetters Pod on both IG and on X. You guys can also follow us on YouTube, subscribe, give us a like, leave a comment at Tablesetters Baseball. And you can also drop a comment in any of the conversations, leave a 5-star review if you're so inclined to help support us and help the algorithm. Devin, any final words before we get out of here?
No, man, I've just been enjoying lots of baseball. It's fun. We've been 2 weeks, but it just feels like more in a good way. It feels like we have more out there. So much has already happened. So I'm excited just to keep on jumping on here week by week and talking baseball with you.
Any regrets dropping Kazuma Okamoto yet? Because I picked them up and no regrets.
No, I saw the pickup. I was thinking about that for a while. Like there were a few guys I had my eye on, and it took too long to get them. The Jordan Walkers of the world, who I was trying to figure out how to snatch, and it took too long. That's on me. And then Christian Walker was out there. Looks like he's having a bounce back year, so I grabbed him. He rewarded me with a home run his first night in my lineup. And there's some other guys still out there where I'm looking at my team like, is there anyone to move here? Haven't figured it out yet. Dalton Varsho is hanging on by a thread on my team just because some of the behind the scenes numbers, the analytics are telling me that like he's not actually doing that bad. He had a better game tonight too. So Varsho is one guy I really do believe in that he's going to end up doing what he needs to do, but he hasn't done it yet. He's been on my bench so far, but there's just some other guys on the free agent wire or the waiver wire that are very intriguing for a few different reasons. But no, I don't regret the Okamoto thing yet. He's striking out at a crazy clip, which is not something I expected of him. But still like the player.
Yeah, I also we got Nick in the chat. He also said I dropped Walker to trim roster. We saw Walker hit another home run today, going 1 for 4. There's no stopping him right now. He took Brad Lord over the center field fence. Now he has 6 home runs on the season, ranks 8th overall in our points league. The other guy I'm asking everyone to have some faith in, I understand the numbers haven't been there quite yet, but looking at the Stuff Plus numbers and his control has always been there. I just picked him up again. I've streamed him one time. Jansen Junk. Mark my words.
You picked him up?
I just picked him up again, yeah.
Son of a bitch, man. He's one of the guys I was talking about of trying to figure out how to make room for him. But again, you take too long. Someone's gonna get these guys.
Yeah, and like usually I'm only picking up pitchers that are streaming, and I feel like more and more this year. Thursdays have been very light, as I mentioned before. It's interesting to watch roster construction take hold because usually my thing is like I'm not picking up a pitcher unless he's pitching the next day. Junk just pitched the other day. He didn't pitch too well, but his Stuff Plus numbers are hard to ignore. The velocity's up. There's a lot to really like from him. And just when you're sitting under the learning tree of that Marlins staff, I feel like there's something to be said about that team developing pitching. And I'm really excited about what Junk's going to do. I'm going to try my best to hold on to him, but we know how it goes, dude. Like my IL is already filled. You're already in the doldrums of the season trying to figure out a way to survive, as you mentioned, making some bad choices of dropping people. And that is really the marathon of a season. And shout out, I won my fantasy basketball league, so I am champion here. And I also won the NCAA tournament as well with Michigan win the thing. So it's been a nice basketball week for me. I'm the king of basketball, as I said in the chat.
Maybe we should do maybe it should be a basketball podcast instead. I don't know. What would you call it?
I don't know. The league was called Wet Ball, so I don't know what Pizzata got from that. He called it Wet Ball. So
okay, Wet Balls podcast. See how that does.
Exactly. But again, we will get into more fantasy baseball as time goes on. Support our show again, like we talked about before. We'll be back soon talking all things baseball. Enjoy the rest of the matchups here. Let us know what you think of the show, and we'll talk to you after a while. And as always, happy baseball.